Hi folks, I'm Nick. Welcome back to my channel Funimation. In this video we gonna see what if Naruto was basically based on Son Goku. So let's start the story. Chapter 1, Well-Needed Strangers. What is it doing here? The nerve of that thing. Why Hokage-sama lets it roam the village, is out of my understanding. A frown marring his face, crinkling the whisker marks on the left side leading to the slight squeeze of the same eye, Naruto trudged the dusty path, vehemently trying to ignore the whispers these mean people made on a daily basis. What was worse, they did that without any care, as if he was non-existent. But why? What did I do? The question had been in his mind, from the very first moment of its cognizance in his 5 years of life. He could totally recollect his first walk into the village, all cheerful and full of curiosity at finally being able to discover the beautiful village. They had stepped out of the orphanage, taken a route around the park before entering the market, all happy and taking in the various sights offered by the village hidden in leaves. And then, that had happened. One of the shopkeepers had begun waving at and passing greeting to all the orphans walking in a line but had halted at his turn. The wrinkly old face had morphed into a weird expression, mouth staying parted, unable to form words. The old man's sudden silence had drawn the attention of the others in the vicinity, marking the commencement of these whispers and stares while adding to his already miserable life. The orphanage was equally bad, if not worse. Naruto shook his head, clearing his mind of that painful memory. After that, with no one to guide him, he had tried his best to forget the past times, to look after and beyond the sneers and derisive remarks of the villagers, while wearing a stupid smile on his face. Had even tried, only a couple of months ago, that ridiculously baggy and orange jumpsuit, even played pranks on the passers-by. The memory of the couple dripping in pink paint, thanks to the balloon he had thrown, brought a smile on his face. Even that graffiti on that vendor's shop was awesome. Ha! The look on his face. The smile disappeared, his thoughts plummeting, once again, to the depressions in his mind as he recalled what the man had called him before immediately turning ghostly white. You, demon. That was when someone had called him that for the first time. And also the last. Still, all those efforts to gain attention had done nothing. If only, the negative attention had increased manyfold. Again, Naruto shook his head. I need to stop doing this, ow. He yelped as his slightly hunched head hit something hard. Rubbing the sore area while slowly easing the clothes ties, he took in the sight of what? Or rather who the obstacle was. A burly man, wearing a bit small open-button dirty shirt over a smaller dirty white vest unable to hide the rotund stomach, while one hand lazily stuffed into the pocket and the other holding a bottle. The man was huge and apparently strong. Not wanting to anger him, Naruto gave a slight bow. Sorry. Please don't be mad. Please don't be mad. Silence ensued for a moment, the blonde still dipping his head, all the while repeating the same words in his mind. A gulp of liquid broke the moment before a scoff was heard. Whatever. Did he just? Naruto blinked. He didn't hear even an ounce of contempt in the tone of the man. Hope reared its ugly head, and he, totally ignoring the part of his mind that screamed at him to stop and leave, raised his head. Blue eyes met the brown for a moment before horror manifested onto the blonde's face as the other man's visage immediately morphed into a shocked one and then to full of scorn. You. Why don't you just die? The drunkard all but snarled before raising his hand that held the bottle. Naruto gasped before lowering his head and bringing his arms to cover the face. The sound of the glass impacting and shattering filled the vicinity, the shards rebounding off the road before one struck his bare leg, submerging into the upper layer of the skin. The blonde hissed in pain, lowering his arms and looking at the piece of glass, and then following the trail of small fragments to the obsidian remnants of the bottle. He missed? Hey, let me go. The words drawing his attention, he immediately looked up only to have his eyes widened. One of those black-clad shinobis was holding the man's arm, and before Naruto could even open his mouth, the ninja had disappeared, obviously taking the man with him. For some moments, the blue eyes looked in pure awe at the floating but slowly cascading leaves, following the trail of one as it drifted closer to him before falling onto the broken pieces of bottle. Just like that, the awe and wonder disappeared, replaced by despair and agony, the spark of pain from the leg only adding to that. His fists closed, slight tremors rocked his body, wetness touched the insides of his eyes, but he clenched his teeth, his self-promise, from all those months ago, flashing in his mind. From now, Uzumaki Naruto will not see cry. Bail. Akihiro Daiki was a retired shinobi. In his 42 years of service to Konohagakure, he had seen a lot of things, committed various actions, all culminating in regret at one point or another. Still, he didn't care for that. After all, life was, for the lack of a better word, interesting. It often found ways to screw you anew. So, when you could get new regrets, why care for the previous ones? Still, he often found himself recollecting his life so far. Many would call him a hypocrite for not heeding to his own words, but he just couldn't help. Like now. Being an orphan from birth, there were very few routes to take in a shinobi village, and like others, he had also joined his fellow orphans and walked on the treacherous path. Graduating academy on the second attempt and clearing the Chunin exams on the third while failing to become a Jounin even after 5, he was a run-of-the-mill shinobi. And, he had accepted that. A carrier Chunin was still a good option. Then, the third shinobi war happened. He could recall vividly the trepidation, the fear of life when they were deployed on the front lines. The fears had only turned to be right when those blasted explosion corps had struck, followed by the infantry. He could still feel the pain from his left eye or where it used to be. That day, they had brushed the boundaries of death and would have even become a part of it if not for that blonde-haired, blue-eyed messiah, well, at least for them who had literally appeared out of thin air. That smile of encouragement and hope had filled him with safety and confidence before his surroundings had shifted, just like that, to a camp in which others like him injured were being treated. Later, he had learned that Namikaze Minato was the name of his savior and countless others. But the name was only a formality, then. By that time, he had totally inculcated his savior's picture into his mind, with an ambition to lay his own life, if needed, for the latter. That was the turning point, and for good. They had won, and on returning to the village, even cannon fodder, like him, were crowned as war veterans. He chuckled. How petty the title was. Still, he was promoted to the rank of Takubatsu Jounin. A year later, he had begun dating a beautiful Chunin, and 2 years after that, they had solemnized their marriage. Everything was good. Then, the Kyuubi appeared. His wife had died, fighting on the front lines, and with her, their 2-month child with whom she was pregnant. He had cried himself hoarse, giving up even the desire to live. Yeah, they were shinobi, meant to endure, and endured he had, to the point that it had led him on the verge of committing seppuku. And he would have, if not for the whisper in the winds, about a child named Uzumaki Naruto, in whom the Kyuubi was sealed, making him a Jinchuriki. There was too much despair and agony in the village after the Baiju's attack, and being a committed soldier, he had taken it upon himself to give the villagers at least a semblance of satisfaction. That night, he had infiltrated the orphanage, finding no resistance at all. With murder in his mind, and faces of his lost ones in his heart, he had ventured inside and after some minutes, arrived before the crib bearing the name of his target. Still, wanting to see the pain and horror on the demon's face, despite his instincts urging him not to, he had flashed a torch onto the face. Only to halt. The child was not sleeping, instead looking at him with those same blue eyes that had saved him all those years ago, given him a chance to have a family. The eyes of his savior. A glance with the torch had also revealed the hair color. It was the same. No qualms were left about whose child it was. After all, there was only one person with that particular shade of hair and eyes. And from what he had known, Minato Namikaze was a selfless man. No way could he have used any other child to bear the burden, not when one of his own was there. And before he knew, kunai had fallen from his hand and the child, on hearing the noise, had giggled at him. He had also laughed for the first time in days, at the newest way of life screwing him. Then, unsurprisingly, and on being sure of the lack of action, this same Anbu had dropped from the shadows before whisking him away to the IT cell. He had spoken truth, word to word. The Hokage, being the kind old fool he was, had released him with the simple demotion to Chunin and a promise not to meet the child ever again. That was 5 years ago. Over the years, once in a while, he had seen the blonde ball of energy trying his best to get the attention of the villagers, but all in vain. Slowly, the energy had depleted. One could only do it so much. Now, as he witnessed the same child, standing in the middle of the road, body trembling now and then, yet not giving way to even a lone tear, he could not help but sigh. You know, fuck the Hokage, fuck the promises, and definitely fuck the village. Today, he would give the child a piece of his mind. His purpose defined, Daiki ambled towards the still child. Naruto continued trying to quell the heaviness that filled his chest, reaching so far up to his neck, reminding himself of the self-promise, while desperately trying to search for a distraction. And, it came. Footsteps approaching him brought him out of misery and musings, just in time to see a pair of feet halting before him. What and now? Looks like everyone got a problem with me today. Feeling a bit of dread, but not at all wanting to give any sort of satisfaction, of his pitiful state, to the man, he steeled himself before looking up directly at the face before him. Blue eyes met brown, waiting for the all-too-familiar expression. But nothing came. The stranger continued to look with pure boredom, not even an ounce of hate or contempt was present on the man's face. Then, why? The blonde thought. Still, scowling, he asked. Here to take a shot at me? The man snorted. Busted little gawky, ain't you? Naruto glared in response. The man continued to smirk. The blonde waited for some moments, during which the man continued to look at him, before slightly gritting his teeth. What do you want? You did not cry, that's good, the man voiced after a moment. Mouth parting, confusion dawned on his face and the blonde could only mutter. What? Any other would have cried before scrambling to their mommy. Oh. He must have seen everything. Eyes averting to the side for a moment, Naruto shrugged. I don't have one. So, now he's gonna make fun of me. There were some children who didn't hate him but just ridiculed him for being an orphan. A grown man doing it will be a first. The man again snorted. Neither do I orphan from birth. Oh. Though Naruto felt confused why the man had shared with him, he couldn't help but feel, though only a little, a sort of kinship. The man's face, devoid of the emotions he was used to seeing, only added to the feeling. But, why is he here though? He was about to ask only for the man to beat him to it. I have seen you gawky, trying hard to get the attention of these villagers. Naruto's eyes widened. They don't even care about you. The little blonde again averted his vision to the ground, a frown appearing on his face. You don't understand, murmuring, he stayed like that for a moment. Why do you even care? I don't, the man shrugged. Though, I do understand, the blonde looked up, head tilting in confusion. Orphan from birth, forgot. Though, not waiting for an answer, the man continued. It's a tough world we live in, gawky. Eh? Fodder like you and me are easily forgotten, only the strong get the respect. Like that old man who sometimes visits you. One with the funny hat. Despite everything, the blue-eyed kid couldn't help but be drawn towards the man's words. Yeah. That one, the man even nodded. He's one of the strongest shinobi, not only in the village but the entire world. Again the whiskered face reflected surprise. And you have seen how the villagers totally throw themselves at his feet, right? The blonde found himself nodding, thoughts drifting towards the kind old man who didn't look at him with those eyes, even laughed with him occasionally, had gotten him his apartment, and often visited him. And, that day when the old man had taken him to the ramen shop, he had been surprised and a little confused seeing the villagers greeting him and praising him. "Why do they look at you like that but not me?" The old man had smiled at him, but it was a bit weird. "Because I am old." He had been confused by the answer but had not continued as they had reached the ramen stand. "I should have asked. People don't respect others on their own but they are made to do that. Grow strong, only then you'll see the change." The words brought him out of memory lane. Wait. Grow strong. Does that mean? Hope flickering on his small face, he blurted out his thoughts. "You want to train me?" "Hell no." The man had all but shouted, not even considering for a single moment. Naruto again scowled. Just a simple no would have been enough. Still, the mystery remained. Why was this stranger here? "I don't like brats, but you are different from others. Still, the point stands, you get the respect, your existence acknowledged only when you become strong." The blonde scoffed. As if he didn't want that. He had seen those shinobis perform all sorts of cool tricks, he wanted that but there was no one he could turn to, "which you won't, not if you spent your time here." He waved a hand, capturing the blonde's attention. "In this part of the village where people live in fantasies and dreams. They don't know shit about what it means to survive. You want to taste the reality, go to the red light district, just past the market of Sector 8. You'll see the difference." Then, suddenly, the man looked around as if remembering something. "It's already evening, time sure passes by, gotta go. Anyway kid," he again looked at the blonde. "One last thing, nothing is free in this world, everybody expects something in return." Then he paused for a bit. "Well, excluding your family and true friends, I guess." So, that's his plan. By just throwing some words, he expects me to give him something in return. As if. But not wanting to test the so far alright nature of the man who was willingly speaking to him, Naruto changed his words a bit. "I can't give you anything." The man's lips twitched a bit. "You have a good head kid, and I don't want anything." The blonde opened his mouth but the man simply waved him off. "I owe it to someone who is now dead." The blonde closed his mouth. "There's a burden on my chest and I think by sharing these words, I will be free of that." There was silence for some moments as both were lost in their own thoughts before the man yawned. "Well then, time to go. See you never, Gaki." Jerk. The blonde again glared as the man walked past him, chuckling a bit. After standing there for some moments, he sighed at the empty feeling that again made itself known. Despite everything, someone had actually talked to him. Again sighing heavily, Naruto began walking only to hiss in pain. Looking offendedly at the piece of glass, for a bit, he bent down and pulled it out, threw it before trudging towards his apartment. Entering the apartment before closing the door, Naruto slowly heaved himself to the chabudai table. Lowering himself, his hand already rummaging under the table for a bandage, he folded his leg. He was about to peel the cover of the bandage when his eyes landed on the cut. Blue eyes widened. This cut was bigger. I'm sure of it. Taking his index finger and thumb, he measured the size of the gash just for assurance. But how? Other children, he had seen, retained the cut for many days. Even after healing, a scar or something like that was normally left. But here, as he witnessed, almost half of the cut was already healed and that too without any scar. This was not normal, right? He gulped. Is this the reason people hate me? Maybe they know about this. For the next few minutes, the blonde continued to ponder over this development before ultimately sighing. None of this was gonna lead to anything. There was no one he could turn to for answers. Even that old man wouldn't know anything. He didn't even know about his parents. Slowly, he rose, returning the healing strip to its original place. Then, he trudged towards the washroom. After peeing, He began washing his hands while his gaze drifted towards the mirror. Just like other days, his eyes set on his whisker marks. How he hated them. Not only did these marks make him look different from others, but they were also what the villagers' whispers were aimed at. If only he could get rid of. A gasp found its way out of his mouth, at the sudden realization. Immediately, he looked towards his leg, raising it and using his still wet hands to hold it. His eyes couldn't be any wider, the mark was all but gone. For the next 10 or so minutes, he stayed still in the washroom, thoughts running through his mind. After deciding what he was gonna do, he nodded to himself before dashing towards the broken glass of one of his own photographs. At that time, more than ever, he missed having a knife. The old man hadn't even given him anything pointed. Picking the photo, he carefully broke one of the bigger pieces before, taking a breath, slit his arm. A hiss escaped his mouth, the finger-sized cut leaving a burning and wet sensation at the same time. Yet, he watched as the blood continued to drip. If this heals by tomorrow, the next thing's definitely gonna be whiskers. And if it didn't, I'll still have my usual face. Finishing his thoughts, the blonde dashed towards his bedroom before jumping onto it. A happy and hopeful smile on his face. The light, filtering from the thin curtains, awakened the blonde. Sitting up and yawning a bit, he left the bedroom, going for his daily habit. As he was in the washroom, washing his hands, the events from last night surfaced in his mind. Quickly he looked towards the cut, or at least where it used to be. With wonder on his face, he traced the hand on the unblemished skin. A small but joyful laugh emerged from his throat. This meant he could get rid of the whisker marks, permanently. He could already picture his face, and needless to say, he liked it. Still, as decided, I will do it before sleeping or the old man would be on my back. Ass. He giggled a bit, using the words used by the older people. Happiness filling his being, he changed into his clothes while switching on the stove, placing the pot filled with water to boil. As he waited, he thought about that stranger's words. Come to think of it, I didn't even get his name. Shrugging, he began thinking about the red light district, the man's words repeating themselves in his ears. Go to the red light district and you'll see the change. Should he? On one hand, the man could very well be lying, but on the other hand, there wasn't any sort of hate or even annoyance on his face. And his words about the old man were also true. Also, from what he had seen, people often use words like trust me or believe me to lure others, but the man had clearly said the opposite. The hissing sound of water boiling halted his musings as he switched off the stove before pouring the water into a bowl and dropping the contents of an instant ramen pack into it. As he began stirring the mixture, he decided to follow the man's words. What more he could lose? If anything, if the man's words came to be true, he will be only gaining. Nodding to himself, the blonde began slurping the salty dish, mind made on his destination for today. Naruto looked at the signboard that displayed Sector 8. Just beyond the street was the market of this sector, and beyond that, his destination. Alright, let's do it. Releasing a breath, the blonde ball of energy dashed towards the market, going parallel to the various shops to the right, and no later, he was standing at the threshold of a small street. Just behind this. For some moments, he stayed still, watching the passers-by as they strode into what was called the red light district. With naked wonder, he watched the people looking at him, while passing, but without any sort of malice or hate. In fact, there was nothing on their faces. And having been the subject of hateful remarks, whispers, and all sorts of negative attention, this was definitely a step up for him. Go to the red light district, you'll see the change. The man's words had begun to come true and he hadn't even entered the area. Again, releasing a breath, his mind already made, the young blonde stepped onto the path leading to the area where people did not live but survived. And, he would soon know that. After several hours of rummaging through the streets of the red light district, Uzumaki Naruto decided to take a brief respite. A slightly satisfied expression was on his face. He had already seen several things. Life was totally different here from the other part of the village. People didn't care for a small child like him cause they didn't simply have the time. Grown-ups were busy doing all sorts of things, even fighting over customers, which was not a sight he had witnessed till today. There were beggars on the streets, and when someone, obviously unknown to these areas, decided to help, soon found himself on a chase of another, obviously an accomplice, who had picked his pocket. Drunkards could be found, passed out, at every nook and crook, with no one even sparing them a glance. In a row of dingy hut-like shelters, weird noises could be heard from men and women. Even he had gotten curious for a moment but turned back at the last moment. Who knew what he was gonna find there? Children of his age, unlike the area near his apartment, did not play, rather worked at different shops. Nor did they have colorful clothes but dirty rags, and that too for appearance only. And what was more surprising, that children did the work within the knowledge of their parents. Yeah, it was difficult here, but, for him, a sort of belongingness was present. Because everybody was struggling, for survival, not for what they wanted, not for what could come but for what they had. Struggling enough so that the day could pass. After all, who had seen tomorrow? There were no dreams, just a sort of resignation. In some ways, it was what his life had become recently. Sitting, for some moments, like that, the blonde stood up while stretching a bit before turning towards the direction of his apartment, only to halt. Standing before him were, he did a quick count, 5 boys, twice as tall as him. And from his day-to-day in the red light district, and the way they were eyeing him, he knew they meant business. And definitely not wanting to be a part of it, he decided to whisk away. Bowing his head, he slightly murmured, "Sorry," before taking a step to the right of the one in the front, definitely the boss, only to find a hand appearing in his vision. He followed it to the face of the boss boy. Now, don't be like that. Vi can you go away out some." The boss boy paused for a moment before looking over his shoulder. "Shanky, they call that." "Oh." The fair-skinned boy thought for a bit, face scrunching up before brightening. Hospitable. Something like that." The others oohed at the one called Shinky, who grinned a toothy smile, yellow protrusions, from the skin, naked for all. "Yay that. After all, you're just from the other side, right?" How do they know? This was his first time visiting this part of the village. Nobody should have known him. Still, not wanting to test his luck, he mentally gulped. "It's okay." The boys chuckled before the boss replied. "No, snat." "Still, you seem to be in hurry," the blonde nodded, too eagerly. "A shame. We coulda got legged." "Ah, no rise." Now from what he had seen today, there was no way it was gonna be this easy. There had to be some catch. Something. "You pays some fees, and you can go." Fees, others chanted. Fees? The blonde timidly asked, the boss nodding in reply. "But I don't have money." "Should have known, it's gonna be money." The smiles disappearing from their faces, the boss looked with a frown. "Come on, brat, that you think us? Anybody and their grannies can tell you're loaded. Hell, look at your mug, all polished and shiny." The last comment about his face brought a surge of anger in the blonde. They were comparing his face to other children, making him one of them, making him normal. He clenched his fists before glaring at the boys. "Look, just let me go or what?" The boss snarled. His eyes already darting in all directions before settling on the right of the big boy. Finding an escape, Naruto yelled, pushing the ladder with all his might. Which, sadly, wasn't enough. The boss growled. "Now, you've done it." The next thing Naruto knew, he was laying face first on the ground, a throbbing head reminding him of where the boy had struck. Further pain began shooting all over his body as the boys began hitting him all over. All the while, he began reminding himself of his self-promise. Though, a part of his mind also wished for someone to save him, but he knew no one. "Oi! The hell are you doing?" The hits stopped, but the pain didn't. Somebody had stopped the boys, and the way they were cursing, it had happened before. Vanda, old man, Vanda. He barely heard the sounds of feet moving further and further away from him. Haru sighed. This was the second kid. In this month, these brats had roughed up. Sure, the entire red light district was full of such punks, but Kanda and his group were the worst. Shaking his head, he strode towards the prone kid. A single glance at the boy's blonde hair and clothes, which, admittedly, were not the best but definitely better than this area, revealed that he was not of the red light district. Where are parents, when you need them? Crouching near the boy, he began shifting him. Hey, you alright, only to freeze as the full features of the boy made themselves known. Blonde hair and even blue eyes aside, the whisker-like marks were a dead giveaway of who the child was. Shit. Damn me and my soft heart for kids. Why did it have to be this one? Now, Haru was sure he didn't hate the kid. After all his family was dead even before Kichuhui had appeared. And unless the Baijiu could somehow torment the dead souls, he was alright with the kid. But the kid, definitely, was not for him, not for this area. Kami knew how many shady deals were made day and night on every brick of the red light district, and the presence of the Kichuhui by Jinchuriki was not gonna bode well for any of them. Being an academy graduate, from the war times, he knew the Jinchuriki was a village asset. And if even a single word about the brats' roughed-up condition reached the Hokage, the old monkey would have their ass. And, those from the Merchant Council will definitely get the red light district rehabilitation proposal passed, leaving them in the dirt. No, I can't allow that. His decision made, he halted his musings before looking at the kid. The blue eyes were looking at him in confusion. Well, at least he's a strong one. No tears, after all that. Now that would have been a mess. Quickly, he held his water bottle to the blonde. Here. But to his surprise, the kid only glanced at the bottle for a moment before looking at him, eyes narrowing, apparently in suspicion. Oh. The kid definitely got a good head. Still, what kind of messed up life did he have, to lead to this? Outwards, Haru chuckled, before taking a sip from the bottle. Immediately, the kid took the bottle and gulped a lot of water for someone of his size, while he gave the blonde a once-over. Phew. There's no blood at least. Thanks. The words drew his attention. Manners, huh? That's not something you see daily. He nodded. You shouldn't come here, kid. This place is bad compared to your side. To his surprise, the kid scowled. How do you even know that? That I'm not from here? He could only shrug. Here, you don't get to see the hair as bright as yours, only black or brown. And even if you somehow manage to find a blonde, well, they'll be more gray or pale. And don't even talk about your eyes. Blue ones are rare in the entire village. The kid seemed to be paying attention, so Haru continued. Anyway, you should stay on your side of the village. The people are really mean here. But to his utter astonishment, a bittersweet smile made its way on the kid's face. The fuck? Someone of his age shouldn't even know about that way of smiling. What? The kid had mumbled something. They are not as bad as they're. This time he clearly heard the words. And, curse his heart, couldn't feel a bit for him. Some moments passed in silence before Haru let out a sigh. Something tells me, you are gonna come here again. A nod was his answer. Reaching a hand through his grayish-brown hair, he also nodded. Then, do something about your face. Like dye your hair, put some eye contacts, and definitely, cover your whiskers, okay? The blonde's eyes had widened, face lit up in surprise, and from the lightness in his own chest, Haru knew he did a good thing today. Then he stood up, giving a two-fingered salute, before turning towards the other side. Where? Can I buy them? Huh? He slightly turned, the words registering a bit later. Oh. Just 5 shops ahead. Then, he ambled towards his shop. Naruto couldn't help but slightly grin, ignoring the pain it shot through his head. The man had given him the most toss idea. He just needed to buy some hair color, eye contacts and, for whiskers, his grin widened, he already had something better. Though, before going, he looked, for the last time, at the retreating figure of the, oh no. I didn't ask his name either. Chapter 2, The Art of Deduction. Hair color. Check. Eye contacts. Check. Whisker marks. Uncheck. Naruto giggled a bit. Standing before the mirror in his washroom, gazing, happily and with contentment, at his nearly totally brown hair with slight wisps of blonde, a shade browner eye contacts and cheeks devoid of even a single blemish, the now brunette couldn't help but look back at the events of the past week. Getting the hair color and eye contacts had been easy, but applying them, a tad bit difficult. Still, as told by the lady at the shop, and after several tries, the things had been managed. Then the time had come for the whisker marks. Naruto cringed, feeling a phantom pain on both sides. That day, he had learned that the inner sides of the depressions in his cheeks were slightly sensitive. They had hurt like nothing before. His self-promise had been broken that day, but he had swallowed the feeling. It was, after all, for a better cause. 1 hour, with 40 minutes of break in between, later, the business had been finished, leaving him totally exhausted. After that, sweet sleep had claimed him and he had quickly embraced it, not even caring for the blood on the covers. The next day had been awesome. Still grinning, the blonde paused his thoughts, walking out of the washroom and placed the water in the pot for boiling. Switching on the stove, he willingly delved into the memory lane, just like every day. It was, after all, the first time he had such a happy time, away from all that negative attention. Nothing could stop him from relishing in the memories, again and again. Who knew for how long they were? Shaking his head rapidly, he focused back, a smile again paving its way on the face as he recalled his second day in the red light district. He had run through several streets, before several shops, around most corners for hours, even trying to search for that kind man who had introduced him to the idea of disguise. Ugh. I should have asked his name. Still the man hadn't been found, not till today, and he was forced to give up. Come to think of it, that is what I have been doing for the last 6 days. But he wouldn't trade it for anything. The red light district might be dull and dirty, full of almost nothing, but it was several times better than being full of negativity. All in all, the last week had been the best time of his life. Till today. The smile on his face, full of happiness till now, quickly morphed onto that of determination. It was time to test his disguise on the people near his apartment. The hissing sound of water boiling made him cut his thoughts, and he quickly prepared the food. Few minutes and 5 instant ramen packs later, the former blonde dashed out of his door, going down the stairs before halting in the corridor. At least some good comes out of my situation. Having no neighbor means no worries. But I need to go out of the window, won't want to spoil it if somebody saw me coming out of the door where it lived. He snorted, sparing a glance at the door on his left, before dashing towards the window on the right. A moment later, he was in the adjacent alley. All right, let's do it. With a skip in his steps, he walked out of the alley before turning and nearly bumping into someone. Looking up, he almost froze. This man. Whoa there, kid. No need to be afraid, the man replied with a chuckle. It's a mistake, happens from all. Then, to his shock, the man ruffled his hair before walking past him. For the next few moments, Naruto stayed there like that. Finally, his hand, breaking the trance, lifted up on its own, hovering just above his hair but not touching them. An awful feeling had already settled in his stomach, a particular memory choosing to resurface. The blonde barely covered his face with his arms when a mask impacted before falling down, leaving a red mark on the limbs. Never let me see you near my shop. Or call me help me. The mask seller snarled, nostrils flaring in and out. Just when he thought the day couldn't get any worse, the rain began falling, drenching him completely. At least, it managed to cover the tires. Naruto could only ask himself, What did I do to him? That was the last time he had cried, not including the whisker marks incident. His fists clenched at the two-faced nature of the man and the people of this village while his mind began to find a distraction, to shift his thoughts. Naori-chan. Come on. Don't you wanna go to the park? Coming, mommy. Yalien. Park. 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 Naruto blinked, the event already fading away, as he realized he could go to the park and have all sorts of fun with other children. Since that shopkeeper didn't recognize me, others won't either. Nodding to himself, the Uzumaki dashed away towards the direction of the park where he had spent countless mornings and evenings, staring at other children of his age while not being allowed to even enter. Only an hour later, Naruto exited from the park, a confused expression on his face. That wasn't what he had expected. The kids, even of his own age, were sloppy, acted silly and for the most minor of things, ran away to their parents. Why? He couldn't understand. They were not supposed to cry on merely falling on the ground, yet most of them had. Then, some, though a bit smaller than him, had even immediately stopped crying when their parents had slapped the ground. The ground was not at fault, right? What was worse, they were littering on the ground without any care for their clothes. Didn't they know how tough it was to clean them? It wasn't as fun as it seemed from the sidelines. Though saddened a bit, he was still in good mood as no one had glared or whispered at him, for the very first time. One young lady had even shared a rice ball. Still, overall, it wasn't a good idea. Never gonna do it again. Sighing, the blonde began walking aimlessly, ears and eyes open for anything else. And luck was on his side today. A mere turn of the street later, he found himself watching a not-so-smaller crowd. Excitement began bubbling in his chest, brightening his face, and the almost brunette quickly sprinted forward, making his way through the crowd, putting his small stature to good use. Halting in the front, his brown eyes took in the sights. A man wearing a funny coat, short at front but way long at the back, was passing some orders to a couple of boys. Then he let his eyes roam upwards on the banner. The art of the deduction, someone supplied. Naruto quickly whirled around, taking in the dull black hair, brown eyes and slightly sunken cheeks of the stranger before his face gained an expression of surprise. You, a finger corroborated his word. Me? Am I supposed to know you? Yeah. The Uzumaki nearly shouted, too eagerly. We met that day in the red light district. You gave me the sauce idea of coloring my hair, and eye contacts. He stopped just before blurting whisker marks. Haru blinked in confusion, looking at the kid, taking in the almost brown hair in which the slight wisps of blonde could definitely be passed as reflection from sunlight, equally brown eye contacts, and cheeks without even a single speckle. No way! This is the Jinchuriki? Though extremely astonished, Kaku was sure that nobody, apart from him and the former blonde, could know about their conversation. Damn. The Gaki outdid himself. He slightly whistled. I totally missed you. Naruto's face lightened up, a series of nods expressing his excitement. Yeah, I know. Nobody recognizes me. By the way, what's your name? I totally forgot to ask you that day. Haru, voicing, Haru pondered at the earlier words of the kid and was slightly disheartened. How fucked up the things are if he's totally okay with hiding his identity. Though, outside, he simply smiled. Does that wall of fire shit mean nothing? Just mere words? So. Huh? The black-haired man looked at the child, barely hearing the spoken word. What is it? What's this deduction? The kid's face was tilted, curiosity alight on his visage. Taking a moment to organize his thoughts, Haru replied. It's basically reading other people, like what they are thinking or about to do, or even telling the truth. That's what they told us the academy, right? Whoa. That's possible? Naruto immediately blurted, totally awed at the idea. Oh, the things I can do with this. Then his feelings slightly dimmed a bit. Maybe. I can even know why they hate me. Well, Haru slightly drawled, scratching his left cheek. Any shinobi, having a good head and knowing his way around the things, can definitely do this. In fact, deduction is one of the fundamentals of the job. After all, a shinobi getting tricked will be totally stupid. A chuckle left his throat at the idea. Though, very few are really good at this. Nowadays, being a shinobi means being flashy. The words leaving him open-mouthed, Naruto slowly glanced towards the performance about to happen, eyes filling with reverence and possibilities. Wait. Mouth closing, he quickly faced the older man once again. Are you a shinobi? No. The older man replied, voice laced with amusement, though clearly understanding where the kid was coming from. But I joined the Shinobi Academy, spent 5 or so years but could not pass the final exam. His expression turning nostalgic, Haru thought about his genuine team. 3 kids, not even on speaking terms, had been put together and the result was a disaster. Despite war on the horizon, they were still good times. But I don't know what they teach nowadays, a shrug accompanied his words. Cool. Naruto muttered. So. Dum 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 dum. The sound drawing their attention, both of them turned towards the makeshift stage. The former blonde witnessed, with excitement and anticipation, as the man, in a funny coat, slightly bowed before clearing his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I, Shinji, welcome you all to this display of magnificent art that is deduction. In simple terms, it means reading what others are thinking. Shinji paused for a bit. Now, the popular belief is that only shinobis are experts in this art, but it's wrong. Everyone, with a good head, is capable. In fact, it can be used in daily life too. Say, a dishonest shopkeeper highly claims about the quality of a product and demands excess money for that. With practice, you can totally, and I mean that, see through his words. Allow me to show you. Haru slightly snorted, drawing Naruto's attention. What? The kid asked, confusion apparent. Is he lying? But you said. Neither he nor I am lying, Haru replied, interrupting the kid and again raised a hand to stop the child whose mouth had begun to part. Geez, learn some patience, kid, slightly huffing, he continued. I meant that despite his claims, he's a shinobi actually, a retired one though. Oh. Naruto thought in surprise but stayed quiet. I have seen him around. And like a good shinobi, he's partially honest. What he doesn't tell that even. Let's take shopkeepers. Yeah, even they can practice a poker face, I mean, Haru added, seeing the confusion. Keep an expressionless or totally calm face so that it's hard to read. Really? Yup. To be good, one needs to be able to read others as well as his own thoughts. That actually makes sense. Naruto nodded in understanding. What good the ability to read would be if the opposite person could also do it. Giving his companion a thumbs up, as he had seen others do, he looked back at the Shinji. Before the retired shinobi, a bench was now placed and atop it, were 2 inverted plastic cups. Nodding, seemingly at the setup, Shinji took in his audience. Now, we will play a shuffling game with these cups and one of them contains 1,000 ryo. Pausing for a dramatic effect, letting the excitement build up, Shinji continued. I am going to invite one of you to shuffle these cups, and then I will read your face to guess the correct one. How you prevent me, is up to you, and if you're successful, the money's yours. Excited mutters rose up, people, mostly teenagers, pointing at themselves. Not able to help himself, Naruto also raised his hand. Hey, select me. Me. Beside him, Haru chuckled at the kid's antics. For some moments, the shouts and yells continued before the performer suddenly pointed with his finger and it took a nudge from Haru for Naruto to realize that the man was pointing at him. Face exploding with giddiness, the blonde let out a whoop of joy before dashing to the stage. Your name? No, Naruto halted, realizing where he was. Idiot. You just gave away your disguise. But now he had to say something. The man's nod, obviously at having heard him, not helping either. What to do? I can't just say no. Name. Yes. Nanashi. Shinji looked oddly for a moment before shrugging. Alright, Nanashi-kun, let's do it. You shuffle the glasses and for the sake of it, I won't even look, voicing, the man turned around. Quickly, with a grin on his face, the Uzumaki began shuffling the cups, slightly hunching over them so no one else could see his work. After some twists and turns, he finally stopped. Done. Shinji turned back, his obsidian eyes immediately swaying between the two cups. All the while, Naruto tried to throw off the man while simultaneously attempting to read the man's face. Some moments passed. This one, Shinji simply pointed at the cup to his right. Naruto immediately sucked a breath before totally deflating. The audience started chuckling. The former blonde pouted a bit. How did you find it? Simple kid, Shinji also chuckled. You tried too hard. From the beginning, you were slightly hunched over the empty cup as if it held the money, and I purposely shook my head looking at it. You immediately tensed a bit and your eyes flickered, for a bit, at the other one. When I looked at the correct cup, you also grabbed it a bit harder, the man again chuckled. A nice strategy for someone of your age, but I'm way too experienced, kid. Now, off you go. Though slightly miffed at being played like that, Naruto couldn't help but be amazed as he walked back and took his place. A comforting hand on his shoulder was immediately placed by Haru. Moving on, Shinji began, taking in his audience. Nanashi-kun, being a kid, was a bit easy. Now, I will ask one of you to select someone older to join me, and I will read them, no later. He randomly pointed at an elderly lady. Please do the honors. The lady looked around a bit before pointing at the teenage girl who slightly recoiled in surprise ahead of walking on the stage and bowed to Shinji, who returned the gesture. Your name, please. Atsuki Himawari. Shinji nodded. Let's begin, the girl nodded. You're going somewhere. The man walked around her for some moments, hunching for a bit, all the while nodding to himself before standing before her. Onsen. You're going to the onsen. The girl gasped a bit. Ho. You just confirmed it. The girl looked in shock, prompting him to chuckle and raise his hands. Sorry, kidding, some chuckles were heard. Anyway, it's all in your appearance, age and the slightly bigger carry bag. The brown-haired girl slightly glanced at her carry bag. To elaborate, this is the actual time you teenagers start your day. Again some elderlies laughed. Secondly, your hair is dry, messy and quickly tied, obviously to wash before the onsen. Your clothes are a bit plain and easy to remove. Third, your perfume. Perfume? Yes. I can smell the remnants of a strong one, as the wind slightly picks up, clearly from yesterday. Of course, today, you will apply it after onsen. The same fragrance comes from your carry bag, but it's strong there, implying you carry it in your bag along with towels and clothes. The bag seems big enough for them. Lastly, if you weren't going to onsen, you would have properly dressed, because most girls of your age are looking for someone special, am I right? A smirk finished the words. The girl blushed a bit but nodded happily. Immediately, the audience burst into wild applause, excited cheers filling the small clearing. Cool. Naruto whispered in total reverence, also clapping loudly. For the next half an hour, that disguised blonde watched wonderstruck as the man continued to read the randomly selected people, while simultaneously stimulating his interest in the art of deduction. Oh, I'm gonna totally try this thing. As the last bout of applause died down, Shinji directed one last gaze at the captivated audience. As I said, anyone can do this. You just need to observe others around you, be patient and work hard. That's all, he finished with a bow. As the people dispersed, Naruto turned to look at the older man beside him. That was totally awesome. Yeah, it was, Haru replied, stretching a bit. Well, time to go, kid. See ya. Giving a two-fingered salute, he turned around only for the kid to run in front of him. Wait. Where are you going? Oh. To buy some things for my place. Then let me help you. that disguised blonde asked with wide eyes. After all, you gave me this. He waved at his face. Idea and even helped me in this deduction thingy. The older man mused to himself. Well, why not? It isn't like there's a law against interacting with him, and it will spare me another round to this sector. Alright, Haru nodded. Follow me. As they walked along the market of Sector 8, hands full with paper bags stuffed with all sorts of things from vegetables to frozen meat, instant food packages among others, Haru gazed at the kid walking beside him. Apart from the slightly depressing aura, seemingly perpetual around him, the kid was mostly happy, a cheerful expression on his face. Judging from his expression that day, I guess it's the first time he has had this much fun. Who knows if and when we are gonna meet again. The least I can do is talk to him. So, you gonna try that deduction thing? Though a bit surprised at the man having stayed silent so far, initiating a conversation, Naruto quickly composed himself. That bail. That Shinji guy said to practice, and I have all the time. Then best of luck from me. Having heard the words for the very first time, that disguised blonde couldn't help the shock and surprise on his face. Neither could he find his voice. Some moments passed in silence. You're different from others, Haru-san, Naruto muttered as they entered the street of the red light district. Then he looked at the older man whose head was tilted in confusion. Someone told me nothing is free in this world, yet you have clearly helped me twice. You are a good person, voicing, he again looked forwards at the street. If it were any other 5-year-old, Haru would have laughed hearing such words from someone so young, but he knew this kid was more mature than others. He couldn't prevent his heart from clenching at the words, the utter sincerity and the tone of the kid worsening the feeling. Finally, unable to take it anymore, he released a heavy sigh, drawing the attention of the child. You're right, kid. Nothing is free in this world, everything's got a price. Huh? Though, before Haru could elaborate, they stopped in front of a small hut-like structure. This is my place, he muttered, going for the knob of the door. Meanwhile, Naruto let his eyes roam over the place. It read Haru's in red color, the paint slightly chipped at several places. The rest of this small building was a bricky structure, painted obviously in white but now turned yellow. A window was just adjacent to the door. Come in, Haru's voice drawing his attention. That disguised blonde followed him inside. Inside, it was almost as big as his apartment. Empty old furniture covered the floor before the counter, behind and above which several shelves, lined with bottles, were present. Alcohol. The Uzumaki mused, slightly scrunching his nose. Two boys, slightly older than him, suddenly appeared from the door behind the counter, approaching them and helping with the carry bags. Sit here, kid, Haru motioned and the disguised blonde complied. Taking the seat, he waved his hand around. In case you're wondering, this place is mostly empty till evening, well, apart from some addicts. Naruto only shrugged. The older man again sighed. Alright, look here kid, your presence, that day, was really bad for the entire red light district. The 5-year-old did not miss the that day part. I mean, if it had reached the Hokage Tower or even the police that a child from the other side is laying here, all roughed up, it could have turned messy. There are some people, rich people from the other side, who want to take this land for themselves. But why? Haru slightly snorted. Per their words, this place is a stain on our beautiful village. It must be remade. Oh. Naruto nodded in understanding. He could see where the man was coming from. This area, despite everything, was their home. Nobody would want to give on that one. I definitely won't, even if my apartment is a bit shabby. So, that's why I wasn't totally honest with you. I hope you understand, Naruto. Barely. Just barely, that disguised blonde prevented his face from displaying any shock, even turning his face down to his lap. He knows my name. I never told him. This could only mean one thing. This man was aware of him even before their meeting in that alley. and people aware of him meant they hated him for some unknown reason. This man must also be aware of, yet Naruto hadn't seen any negative emotion on the former's face. In fact, the man had willingly talked to him, helped him and even accepted his help. And now, the man had shared his honest thoughts with him. Cogs began turning in his mind as he pondered over the possibilities. He is old enough to know why people hate me. If I'm correct, he's my best option to find the truth. As he looked up, he was pleased to see that Haru hadn't realized the slip-up. Thank Kami. So, I can come here from now? Huh? As I am in a disguise, nobody has recognized me so far. Even Kenta and his group didn't. Kenta? Haru shouted, startled. How the heck did you even meet again? He found me the very next day. Seems like he knows everyone and their grannies here. That's definitely what Kenta says. There wasn't even a sliver of irritation, let alone anger, in the kid's voice. If anything, his tone seemed like they were almost friends. Haru mentally gulped at the absurd thought. Surely, it cannot be. They asked for money, I refused. They began hitting me, and I laid there believing someone would come and save me. Naruto chuckled, recalling the day. Nobody came and nobody was gonna, realizing that I tried to help myself. Haru groaned, already assuming the worst. Please tell me you didn't? Well, the Uzumaki drawled, grinning a bit. I might have bitten their hands and arms a couple of times. Seeing the older man's expression, he shrugged. It ain't like I could have done anything more. And why aren't you angry? Usually that's the feeling after getting your ass handed to you. Naruto scratched his hair a bit. I was, but I had also realized that I needed to get strong. So, the next day, I found them. The older man again groaned, rubbing his temples. They again beat me. 2 days later, I again found them, and even yesterday, the 5-year-old's grin widened. You're an idiot, kid. That's what Kenta said, yesterday, after beating me. Now, Haru looked in surprise. Kenta wasn't the one to stay for chat after finishing his business. The punk just left with money. For him to say something like this, it was like he had begun to respect the gaki. So, can I come here? The words halting his thoughts, Haru looked with slight confusion. Here? At my place? Sometimes, Naruto paused for a bit. It's good to talk to someone. The words were not more than a whisper. Oh. Haru's face turned a bit solemn. That bad, huh? Well, he had nothing to lose. As long as the kid was in disguise, he could always play the surprise card if things went south. Moreover, it wasn't like the kid was asking him about the fox. I will even help you. For free. And that sealed it. All right, but not a word to anyone. Naruto nodded, eagerly. At the same time, his stomach chose to rumble, the brunette slightly rubbing the back of his head. Haru chuckled, standing up. Wait here, before walking into the room behind the counter. Some moments later, he walked back to their table, a piece of bread in his hand. Here. The hungry kid accepted the offering, albeit with a bit of confusion. Oh. I haven't even helped you yet. For the next time, then, Haru replied with a smile. That was good. Not as good as ramen though. As he began thinking about the possibilities that had opened, Naruto paused, turning around a corner. Standing at some distance, were Kenta and his boys, gazing directly at him. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Kenta began folding his sleeves. The former blonde took a step forward. Kenta cracked his knuckles. Naruto again took a step forward. Shinki grinned, yellow teeth visible despite the distance. And waved. Kenta groaned. Just like that, the moment was broken. Well, Kamagaki. That your waiting for? As if that was the cue, the 5-year-old dashed forward, a confident grin on his face. After all, if he wanted to get strong, he needed to learn to fight, right? Upon reaching close, he simply dived towards Kenta, who simply smirked and grabbed one of the thin guys beside him, before pushing him to the front. Naruto collided with him, taking the older boy to the ground. As he tried to stand, a kick hit him on his back, flattening him to the ground. Quickly, and ignoring the pain, he again began to stand up. This was what the fights, in the last week, had taught him. Never pause and certainly, never back down. Upon standing, Naruto yelled and again dashed forward. Report. Apart from some recent developments, everything is in order, Hokage-sama. Define recent developments. Hi, the boar-masked Anbu began. From 800 hours last Wednesday, Uzumaki-san has begun disguising himself. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, the god of shinobi, was seldom surprised nowadays. Hearing what his grandson figure had decided to do, definitely counted in the seldom part. Leaning forward, eyes glistening with interest, the Hokage crossed his hands under his chin. Do elaborate. Uzumaki-san has started dyeing his hair brown, begun wearing equally brown eye contacts and clearly some makeup on his cheeks, effectively hiding the whisker marks. Interesting, the Hokage murmured. The attitude of the villagers towards the kid was not hidden to anyone. Ever since they acquired the knowledge about the blonde's status, the villagers had been quite expressive of their distaste forcing his hand. But classifying the kid's secret as S-rank, giving him his own apartment and even tasking an Anbu to deliver the necessary items at his doorstep hadn't been enough. The Hokage, despite everything, couldn't just forcefully shift the paradigm of the inhabitants of Konohagakure. They were a military village but not a dictatorship. But it seemed the child had found a solution on his own. Smiling a bit, the old leader again directed his gaze at the still Anbu. Any issues? Negative, Hokage-sama. Then let it be. Anything else? Uzumaki-san has, of recently, also took an avid interest in the art of deduction. Hiruzen blinked. Art of deduction? I believe that is the event run by Tanaka Shinji. Hi. Please explain. And the Anbu did. Some moments and a thorough explanation later, the professor couldn't prevent the previous smile from morphing into chuckle. I can feel things will never be boring around you, Naruto-kun. Hearing the chuckle, laced with amusement, interest and a bit of pride, the boar-masked Anbu frowned behind his mask. Why does Hokage-sama care for that boy? True, the brat, being a Jinchuriki, was a village asset, a deterrent to other villages, the ultimate weapon, but their aged leader clearly went above and beyond that, almost on a personal level. That accursed Baiju, sealed in that boy, had caused so much pain and suffering, killed his many friends yet gotten a chance at life, admittedly, a caged one. Nevertheless, a caged life was still better than death, right? He just simply couldn't bring himself to care for that boy even knowing that the latter was totally separate from the entity sealed in him. If only that idiot IE had plunged the kunai that night. But, what was done couldn't be changed. The only thing he could do now was to prevent the Hokage from knowing the boy's recent ventures into the red light district. Hopefully, it will ruin the brat just like many others. The boy had already started picking up fights with older kids from there. And he, as per his orders, could only interfere in case of a clear life and death situation, not some punks slugging each other. All in all, it was a beneficial situation. Good work, boar. Hiruzen appraised the masked shinobi, drawing his attention. You have done your duty well. I will make sure you get the rightfully deserved credit. At least some good comes out of dealing with that brat. Boar bowed deeply. Thank you, Hokage-sama. The Hokage looked at the calendar for a bit. In 4 months, the next session of the academy will start. Once Naruto receives his enrollment, you will be discharged of your duties. Dismissed. The Anbu again bowed before disappearing. Left to his own devices, Hiruzen picked his smoking pipe before taking a puff. A moment later, his eyes flickered to the portrait of his successor. Your son is developing into quite an interesting child. In just 4 months, he will meet her. The aged Hokage again took a drag. Was he wrong in heeding to the last wish of a dying woman? Then again, Kushina was rather impulsive. What would have you done, Minato? It was evening now. Looking down from the skies, Naruto jumped off his perch on the wall surrounding the academy grounds. Dusting his shorts, the brunette began walking towards his apartment, a contemplating expression on his face. A month. No, almost a month had passed since he saw that Shinji guy performing the deduction tricks and telling the audience, in the end, to practice, which he had. Spending several hours a day and nearly every day in the last month, surely counted as practice, he was sure of that. And practice had somewhat worked. He had begun to note different expressions that appeared on the people's faces as they talked with others or even sometimes thought to themselves. The way their eyes would sway or face would tilt a bit meant they were, most of the times lying or unwilling to talk, a bit more than necessary, squeeze of the cheeks while at the same time, no shift in the shape of eyes meant a forced smile. When stopped by someone for a conversation, the direction their feet would come to halt, most number of times, implied hurry, unwillingness to talk and the possible destination. These were small things but really helpful. Though, these signs usually belonged to those who were a bit more expressive like teenagers. That disguised blonde slightly groaned recalling his tries to read the elderlies. It was surprising how the old geezers could usually keep a calm face despite anything. The wrinkles on their skin didn't help either. And, the shopkeepers. They were a totally different bunch. Their expressions were totally in match with their words. Only a couple of them, mostly newbies, he had seen, were lacking in the area. Naruto sighed heavily. But the man had made it look so easy as if the thoughts and feelings of people were literally written on their faces. Ugh. It's so confusing. It's like there's something that I am missing. Something. The almost 6-year halted on reaching the apartment building. Walking in the alley beside it, he jumped inside through the window, landing in the corridor ahead of walking a bit before taking the stairs. I will think about it later. Reaching the top, he was about to shuffle his feet on the carpet but paused, left shoe coming to halt just a bit above. Slowly, he brought back his feet before crouching, eyes narrowing at the rectangular piece of green textile. The color was faintly darker than he was used to seeing. Slightly upturning a corner, he wasn't surprised to see the usual lighter shade, result of the daily usage and subsequent washing, seen by him just this morning. Just like clothes. The outer side fades a bit. It could only mean one thing, someone had clearly inverted the carpet. Standing up, he began looking for other signs, gaze taking in the door before pausing at the doorknob. The former blonde slightly hunched over it and didn't startle, even a bit, to see the smudges, due to handprints, covering the entire frame of the doorknob. As if someone had used two smaller hands like his own to open the door, or it could also be a bigger one, but he was sure. He had been using a single hand, left or right, ever since his moving into the apartment. When I use it, only half of it gets smudged. Clearly, someone is inside. Slowly, and trying to be quiet, Naruto turned only to gasp. Standing before him, clearly amused, was the kind old man who had given him this apartment. Impressive. What? The brunette tried to understand why the old man was praising him, but then his mind caught up. There is someone inside, Gigi. Now, he knew this old man was strong and could possibly help him. Hiruzen chuckled. No need to worry, Naruto-kun. I just wanted to test how far you have come in the art of deduction, and I must say, I am impressed. The former blonde looked in confusion for a bit before his eyes widened. It was you, he voiced, even pointing a finger. Yes. I inverted the mat and left my handprints on the doorknob, which you clearly noticed, a remarkable feat for someone of your age, the professor gave an approving nod. In fact, many shinobi won't either. Then, there are others like Anko and Guy. He mentally cringed. Those two will willingly walk inside. Oh, suddenly Naruto squinted his eyes. How do you even know I am trying this deduction thingy? Hiruzen hummed a bit before motioning the kid towards the door. Let's talk inside, shall we? The Uzumaki nodded before opening the door and walking inside. The Hokage smirked in amusement. Only this child had the galls. Any other would have definitely held the door open and asked him to walk in first. Entering the apartment, Hiruzen looked at the child, giving him a questioning look. "I know because I was there at the event organized by Tanaka Shinji." "No way," Naruto immediately denied, crossing his arms, trying to be imposing as he had seen others do. "I could have definitely seen your funny clothes." "You're lying. Let's read you, Gigi." Hiruzen maintained his facade of amusement, giving the child some moments to implement his art of deduction. Finally, he spoke. "You were not the only one with a disguise there, Naruto-kun." Slightly frustrated at being unable to get anything from the man and confused at hearing the words, the former blonde decided to drop the issue. "Old people are really difficult." He tilted his head to a side. Why? Why do you need it?" "Sometimes, I roam around the village in disguise so as to know the state of things like the well-being of people among others. It is easy that way. Simply walking, as I am now, invites a lot of attention from the villagers. The reason, I am the Hokage of this village." "Whoa!" Naruto whispered, totally floored. He had learned a lot of things in the last month. One of them was that the leader of their village was called Hokage. The same Hokage who was standing before him, had been the first person to talk to him with kindness. This guy deserved some respect. The former blonde bowed a bit, imitating as he had seen the others. "I didn't know." "It is alright, Naruto-kun." The Hokage was a bit surprised. It seems the art of deduction has improved his manners. "Moving on, let us talk about you, or rather your disguise and reading skills." "That disguise helps with the people," Naruto replied, not feeling even a bit of discomfort talking to the elder man, the latter having always shown ignorance about the issue. The old man might be lying, but there was no way to find the truth either. "And, the reading skills," he simply shrugged. "They are not that good. I can't even read you." Ignoring the emergence of despair in his heart, Hiruzen smiled. "Because I am old." And wrinkly, Naruto grinned a bit. Hokage or not, the old man was still his Gigi. But yeah, old people are difficult to read. Hiruzen also chuckled at the wrinkly part. The old have learnt how to be patient and calm in all situations. They have good control over their emotions, and always think before they act. The child showing interest, the professor continued. "Still, you must not underestimate yourself. Figuring out the possible break in your home, from the carpet and doorknob, is nothing short of impressive for your age. You'll only get better as you grow." "Oh. Alright," Naruto replied, understanding every word. That Shinji guy had said the same thing. Thinking before acting, huh? I think I could do that. "There is another matter I want to discuss with you," the child nodded. "I have decided to enroll you into the academy in the next session starting in 2 months, it was time." The son of his successor had asked for this many times in the past. "Really?" That disguised blonde nearly shouted, almost jumping but controlling at the last moment. Controlled your emotions. This was awesome. He was finally going to become a shinobi. All those cool tricks will be mine. He. The Hokage let his grandson figure relish, enjoy at the prospect, for some moments, before slightly clearing his throat. Again, he watched in amusement as the kid tried to compose himself, but a slight grin continued to remain. "Here," he passed an envelope. "This is your monthly stipend. It contains some extra money. Don't use that. The same amount of money will be added in your next stipend. Then, one of my shinobi will help you purchase the articles required in the academy." Again, a huge smile appeared on Naruto's face and he quickly hugged the old man. "Thank you, Gigi. I will be the best shinobi to bail." Naruto waved at the old man before closing the door. Quickly dashing to his bedroom, he put the envelope under the bed sheet. Then, he walked to the washroom, coming to halt just before the mirror, left hand finding purchase on his hair. looking at the dull brown color of his hair, that disguised blonde mused to himself. They need to be colored again. Eye contacts are good though. Then he suddenly sighed a bit. Before that, I will have to walk in the village as Naruto. Appearances needed to be kept, after all. Thank you for watching this video. If you like, please like, share and subscribe and wait for my next video.